Hi, Gabby. Thank you so much for coming on the Thrival Nutrition Podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me.
Yes, we had a little bit of tech difficulties, but we're here and I'm so excited. I mentioned before we started recording that I'm just so excited to be talking about this topic with you today. So if you want to just get started, introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, great. My name is Gabi Shannan, and I own and operate Austin Thermography here in Austin. And it's a thermography lab. We provide services to men and women. Our most popular screening is the breast screening, but we also offer torso and full body screenings.
Awesome. Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was, because it's so linked to like more so breast, or that's what you hear about. I didn't realize that it could be a full body thing. Very interesting.
It's true. Yeah. It's mainly, my clients are mainly women, and most of them are interested in breast health for the breast screening. But I do have quite a few male clients that do the full body too, because there's just a lot of things that thermography can help find.
Oh, that's awesome. So before we get into it, what brought you into this? And I guess this place of business.
Yeah, so I had a very dear friend who was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer at age 39. And so, you don't typically get referred for a mammogram until you're 40. But by the time they found it in her, it was already stage 4. And she ended up passing away 2 years later. And also, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer around the same time. Thankfully, she had it biopsied, removed, lumpectomy, and was, on her way, is still healthy today. But it was right around that time I started getting really nervous because my friend was the same age as me at the time. And I wanted to know because, mammography was not recommended at that age, and there's a good reason why, and I'll talk about that later. I wanted to find out what I could do that might be, some help at that stage. And my sister-in-law actually told me about thermography. And so I started going and getting screenings done myself. But the problem is that here in Austin that there wasn't any full-time thermography lab. And so it was super hard to get an appointment. And I thought, you know what, this is such a great thing. I love it. I'm so interested in it. And so I figured out how I could train to be a technician myself and open this lab so I could offer it 5 days a week, all day long. I have another technician that works for me, so we can schedule people at times that are convenient for them instead of, trying to book a month out because it's hard to get in. So that's why I opened my lab, and I love it. And it's such a pleasure and honor to be able to serve women who are just trying to do the best they can for their health.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit about the basics of it. Like, what is it? And what is the main difference? Really just targeting, we can mention the whole body, but just targeting breast in general. Like, why does it make it so different than the normal mammogram?
Okay, so thermography is a radiation-free, no-contact breast screening method that has been approved by the FDA since 1984. Wow. It utilizes a state-of-the-art infrared camera to detect and measure heat, thermal radiation coming off the surface of the skin. And why that's important is because pathological processes most of them demonstrate a form of increased heat. And that increased heat can be a sign and indicate areas of angiogenesis. And angiogenesis is just a big word for the growth and formation of blood vessels. Because when tumors start to grow, they send out an AF factor, an angiogenesis factor, to the body that says, feed me. Mm-hmm. And that feed me signal causes the body to grow a vascular system around that tumor to feed it, circulation pattern. And that's asymmetrical typically and can show up on the surface of the skin. And for breast cancer, that was actually discovered in 1956 by a guy named Dr. Lawson, who had breast cancer patients. And he noticed that the surface of their skin over their, already diagnosed biopsied breast cancer tumors was slightly elevated by about 2 degrees. And so cancer cells grow faster than the surrounding tissue. They need additional blood flow, and that is what thermography is great at detecting.
Wow, that's awesome. How does it say, because right, there's naturally heat going on in our body, there's blood flow and all that stuff. How does it say, like, no, it's normal to abnormal? Is it just,
well,
I guess,
because it's really a symmetry issue, because the human body is not perfectly symmetrical, but it is to a certain degree. And so what we do is we take, pictures of the entire, the area of the breast specifically, since that's what we're talking about. And wherever there is noted, and I don't do this, I'm contracted with a group of doctors who actually read and interpret my images. I'm just the technician.
Nice.
So the doctors survey the images for high temperatures. And wherever there is, say there's a high temperature right here, it's reading as, bright red. It's an elevated temperature from the surface of the skin surrounding it. So they're going to take a reading over here to the exact same location on the opposite side and compare the two, because that's what we're looking for, for temperatures to fall within a certain range to be considered normal. And when they fall outside of that range, that's when we want to investigate what's causing that hyperthermia.
Interesting. Do you feel like it's always tumors? Is that what it almost leads to?
Oh, no, certainly not. A University of Wisconsin study actually found, and this was in the 80s and 90s, I believe, that thermography could find tumors 8 to 10 years before a mammogram could find it, because those tumors were so small, they weren't even palpable, and wouldn't show up on a mammogram yet, but they would start to grow that blood flow to them. And that's pretty impressive, right? 8 to 10 years ahead. It's not guaranteed, but it can. It was found in this study. However, when you have those areas of hyperthermia, those hot spots, they can also be fibrocystic in nature, hormonal. They can be toxicity, just from the junk that we take in. And our body just deposits, that junk in our fat, and we have a lot of fat in our breasts. And so it can be numerous things, and thermography can identify just those areas and can track your progress. Because a lot of times I do find clients who have fibrocystic breasts, they're lumpy and painful, especially periodically through the month. They change, and I've seen great results from clients who do dietary cleanses, digestive cleanses, to just cleanse out the junk that the body is storing up and causing those pockets of inflammation in the breast. And so what's really cool about thermography is you can actually see some of those spots decrease. It's like a confirmation that what I'm doing is having a positive effect.
How often should you get a scan if you're like trying to monitor and make something better? Is it like every 6 months or?
Yeah, so it's going to be different from woman to woman based on your first thermogram. The doctors will take a look at it and determine are there any areas that are reaching that higher threshold, that are 2 degrees higher than the other side. Then they're going to want to see you back in 6 months, just to see. It's a period of time where they could see a change happening, but not so much time that things could get out of hand and not deal with it to prevent something getting worse, right? And if someone had a history of cancer, they had already identified cancer, or the vascular pattern was particularly complicated looking or particularly hot, they might ask you to come back in 3 months to see how that has changed. And if nothing has changed, when you come back after that, they'll push it out to a year, just like, an annual screening.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, because I know you kind of mentioned the difference of, especially with that study, them showing 8 to 10 more years, catching something very early versus a mammogram. But what are some of the dangers or concerns, I guess, that people have with mammograms that they start looking for alternatives?
Oh my goodness. So many, people are concerned with the radiation, because there is, I think 40% more radiation, because they'll say it's about the same amount of radiation as what you get from your natural surroundings over the course of a year. Have you heard that?
Yes.
That's something that they like to say. But the truth is that I think it's about 40% more than your natural surroundings over the course of a year. Maybe that's different with low dose mammograms that are coming out now. But the fact is that, dose and dose rate are important in that, a dose of 1,000 millisieverts of radiation over the course of a year is a lot less impactful than 1,000 millisieverts of radiation in a second, So it's just radiation is a great concern. And you have to wonder why when you get a mammogram or an x-ray of any kind that you're the one being exposed and everyone goes behind the lead curtain,
Yes.
So radiation is linked to cancer. And when you're trying to find cancer, a lot of people, understandably so, think that it's a little bit, it doesn't make sense to find cancer with a cancer-causing agent. So that's one thing that people are very hesitant about. Also the contact, the physical, the squishing action. I just had a client come in who said she went in for her annual mammogram and they found a little shadow that was questionable, which happens a lot. That's one of so many, I think it was, I can't remember the percentage of false positives with mammograms, but scaring women half to death. And so they come in for a second diagnostic mammogram, they're called, which they up the radiation. They might include more views, which is more, quantitative radiation too. And she said they squeezed the plates down so hard on her breast that she felt a pop, pop, pop sensation. And she said, I'm never doing that again. I have no idea what kind of damage they just did to me, and so it's just our body can encapsulate stuff too. And when you press hard down on it, you have to wonder what just got released, into my circulatory system. And so there's a lot of things that people are scared of with mammograms. Those are the two big ones.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I have little boobs, so I don't know what it would feel like. I'm sure not pleasant whatsoever.
I know. I've never had it done. I've only heard the horror stories. I'm not so blessed myself either. So I imagine I would have a pretty painful experience from that. So.
Yeah, I think coming from a nutrition standpoint, I think one of the worst ideas that our society has is that, quote unquote, to catch it early, the mammogram is the answer. And I'm like, no, that just shows that you have it. That doesn't catch early. I mean, there's so many things you could be doing with your lifestyle and nutrition that could affect, catch things early, take care of things early. And I just feel like it's such a lie when we hear, especially in the breast cancer, fundraisers and you name it, it's just get your mammogram and you'll be saved. I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
You hit on something really key there. And that is that, with all of the awareness, the pink ribbons everywhere in October and everybody get screened, get your mammogram, and women getting literally bullied by their doctors into getting mammograms. I hear about it all the time of women who get released from their doctor because they won't go get a mammogram.
Wow.
I mean, it's terrible. But you would think with all of that pressure and the increased screening mammograms that are being pushed on women, just the number of screening mammograms have risen dramatically. You would think that the mortality rates from breast cancer would plummet because we're finding them early, right? But they're not. They're staying the same. So mammograms are just not that helpful at screening. They're statistically, under the age of 50, they're statistically the same in terms of finding cancer as a self-exam. That was a study, I think, done in Switzerland. There's statistically no reduction in breast cancer, death from breast cancer with increased screening that's happened lately. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that too. Breast cancer screening or thermography is just not that helpful for women under the age of 50. And the main reason is that under the age of 50, women typically have denser breast tissue. And a mammogram is a structural test, an anatomical test. It's looking for densities. And when you have dense breasts, or you have fibrocystic breasts, fibroglandular breasts, it's hard to see around and behind those structures within the breast. And so under 50 with denser fibrocystic breast tissue, if you have implants, also hard to see through those. It's hard to see through those with any test, to be honest. But, you know, that's also the popping issue. You know, don't want to pop those suckers. I think they make you sign a waiver that says if anything happens, you know, when you get a mammogram, if anything happens, you cannot hold us responsible. It's like, another red flag, you know? So yeah, there's screening mammography has just proven to be just not as rewarding as, you know, you're led to believe, that women are led to believe, that doctors are led to believe. It's just not as helpful as we would hope it would be at this stage. And that's why it's like at this point, when we have additional technology that can show us a different perspective of the body, we should use it. You know, it's another tool in women's and their doctors' tool belt to figure out what's going on inside of the body.
Yeah.
So, and that's what thermography is. So mammography and ultrasound are structural tests, whereas thermography is a physiological test. It's revealing bodily processes that are going on as demonstrated by the heat that is given off.
I love that. That's really awesome. So I know people are going to ask, like, I know probably every clinic's different, but is there like an average rate that this is? Is it an expensive thing, or does insurance cover it?
So that's a legitimate question. I mean, healthcare can be really expensive. I know that our network that I belong to, it's called Breast Thermography International, and we have clinics all around the country in different states. We have a pretty set price schedule, and that's $249 for a breast screening. And during the month of October, I think most of us also do a $50 off
Nice.
for the entire month too. So it brings it down to $199. Yeah,
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. I know I just saw a flyer from another thermography place based out of a different part of Texas, and they were at $350. So they were $100 more than I am.
Okay. See, so, like, to me, that's great. I think, but I'm also used to functional testing naturally, stool testing that costs $380. Right. We do Dutch hormone testing, which is $389. So like things that I feel like are worth it and really show you more than just more inside the body, more about it is so worth it. To me, that's a great.
Yeah, and it causes zero harm. There's no question that there's anything harmful being done to the body. So unfortunately, insurance does not cover it. At one time they did, even in the 80s, Medicare even covered thermography, but for some reason they dropped it, and that's sad because the technology is increasing in its ability to find things. It's just getting better and better. So I'm hopeful that it'll pick back up so that more people can afford it. But for right now, they haven't figured it out. Just like they haven't figured out, things like acupuncture and, massage therapy and stuff getting covered for those, functional medicine. Yeah.
The things that matter. I'm just kidding. Kind of. I'm actually not kidding. I always get that question. I feel like not everyone actually, because I feel like a lot of the times when people come to us, like they've already tried everything that insurance can cover, and you name it, even like the best doctors, like in the state of Texas or wherever that they are. And it's so insane how like just no one really addresses like their lifestyle or diet. They don't even take a look at it, and like it's just medication. Like but that's what they're studying in. So I can't that's what they know. I guess you can't.
I know. It's bizarre to me. I don't understand why they're not teaching doctors more about what you put into your body and how that affects how it functions. We don't put sugar into the gas tank of our car because that's not what it was designed to run on,
yes, Totally. Exactly. What would the age be? Like, what's usually the age range you find this would be a very beneficial tool for them to start?
Okay, so I would recommend starting at, you could start for sure by age 20. I would start getting a baseline, because just to see, this is where you are, hormones in play now, you know, this is what you look like at age 20, and then start from there, and then you can see things develop. When my girls start to get, I have an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old. Once they start hitting puberty, I'm going to start screening them too, just because I just want to start early. I want to see what's going on in there from the very outset of the, you know, their hormones. So starting at age 20, I would say for sure. And really, there's no age limit, upper age limit for doing this. You know, mammograms they're statistically better at age 50 and above, because the breasts become more fatty in nature. And a mammogram can see right through fat. It's much easier to spot cancer in a fatty breast than it is in any kind of fibrous breast. And most of us have some degree of fibrosity in our breast. 90% of women have some degree of fibrous breast. So only 10% have fully fatty breasts, and a lot of those women are over the age of 50. And so, so you can say that screening mammography is more effective over the age of 50, but still, I'm still thinking I still don't want to subject my breast or my body to the additional radiation. Now, that's not to say that mammography, and I don't want to badmouth it in general, because I think it has its place. You know, just like there are some, you know, medications that have their place. When I get hit by a truck, you know, I probably don't want functional medicine. I'm going to want morphine. I need somebody to set my bones. You know, there's a place for surgery and drugs.
Yes.
But that's on the outset. You know, and so I'm that same way. I like to take a more conservative approach, and that's what thermography is as a screening method. But all that said, I just wouldn't want to subject the body to stuff that I don't think is necessary until it is necessary. Yes. And so, you know, with mammograms, there's two different kinds. There's a screening mammogram, which is mainly what I'm talking about when I'm saying I prefer thermograms. And then there's a diagnostic mammogram. That's when there's been a demonstrated lump or something like that. That's different, you know, where you're not doing this every year, you know, on the 10th of October or whatever. So that's different, you know, and that's totally up to the discretion of a woman and her doctor. What is the next best test moving forward in order to diagnose cancer? But that said, also, you know, a single test, whether it's a thermogram or a mammogram, is not going to diagnose cancer. Only a biopsy can do that.
Yeah, right.
So no one test is perfect. You know that, running all kinds of different tests with people.
It's bringing all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
That is really necessary.
Exactly. Taking a multimodal approach is going to give you more facets. You know, you're going to see more facets of your body to figure out what the real story is.
Yeah, definitely. What are some of the things that you feel like you've seen or heard of when they do thermography with the whole body, like outside of the breast? What are some other things that you see a lot? Okay, so there are, you know, any number of things that can be picked up on. One huge thing that we always measure when we do either the torso or the full body screening is you have these supraorbital arteries right here, and they're directly connected to the inner carotid on this side. And if it's the same thing, we take a measure on one and a measure on the other and compare the two. And if there's a significant, you know, with outside of our range, our typical range, then we're talking one is much cooler than the other. We might be talking about a carotid artery blockage. So that's a very useful measurement that we always take with those two different levels of screening. You can find and you can see a lot of lymph flow congestion. That shows up as heat, as inflammation, you know, at the base of the neck, down the sides of the armpit, around the axillary part of the breast. You see a lot of lymph congestion. Varicose veins, which, you know, you think if you can see them, what's the big deal? But some of them are hidden. And one of my very first clients had just gotten back from a road trip where she was in pain and she couldn't figure out why and was wondering if she had overdone it, you know, playing tennis or what the deal was. But there was that white snake sign down her leg in her thermogram that was a clear indication she had a really big varicose vein going on in there. And so
even though there's probably limited things that you can do about a varicose vein, at least knowing that that was the cause of the pain is helpful, so that you don't have to look for other causes. There's neuromuscular issues, inflammation, of course, sprain, strain. I've had people check their circulation pattern and see, that they're not getting enough blood flow to their arms. Their arm, or one arm in particular, is cool, and you can relate that to from the dermatome of the body to the back. And for chiropractic purposes, maybe you can see where exactly they're having a subluxation in their spine that's causing, nerve, not nerve congestion, but, lack of nerve signal to that part of the body. So there's so many things that it can pick up on. On men in particular, varicocele in the testicles, it's a very good test for that. There's so many things. It can't see through. It can't see through hair. So any part of the body that's covered in hair, it's not going to see a lot of. In fact, it couldn't see through clothing because it doesn't see through things. It picks up on the surface temperature that's given off, but it can pick up on a lot of things with that alone.
That's awesome. And then when you get this done, so does every doctor know like how to read this, or do you take it to someone that specializes it, or?
Sadly, no, not many doctors either know about it or think that there's much merit to it, which I think is such a shame. It's not, it's not some questionable, voodoo that's going on here. It's, when you feel sick, what happens? You have a fever that you measure, when you go into the doctor's office, they take your temperature because an elevated temperature is a sign of some process going on, that's abnormal. And so that's why when it seems to me, it comes down to just doctors not getting exposed to this technology. When we have an appointment, or when a patient gets their report back, they can make a phone appointment with one of our interpreting doctors that obviously is licensed in thermology and can speak with authority and expertise on those images. So we do offer that.
Perfect.
More and more as I do speak to holistic doctors, naturopaths, they do want to know more. And so I'm trying to get the word out and educate. We have a course that we can actually send them a link to so that they can just understand thermographic images a little bit better. So fortunately, we're not there yet, but we're getting there.
It's coming. That's really awesome. I know that since we have listeners all over the U.S., but where are you in Austin for people that do live here in Austin and want to get more information?
Oh, great. Yeah, I am located in Shannan Chiropractic. It's actually my husband's chiropractic office, and that is just off of 2222 and Mopac. It's actually on a strip that's now being called Medical Row because there's just one doctor's office after another.
Awesome.
So, cool. Very, very quick, easy access. And the website too for making appointments is super easy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I will make sure to put all the information in the show notes so people can go check you out and get this to interest them. I know I will.
Yeah, great. I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Lahana. I've had a good time.